In this video, let's talk about the miniatures we don't play with. So, I was packing away my Night Lords after I had finished the last video. There you go, fellas. In with the Lamenters, don't fight now. Anyway, I was packing away my Night Lords when I had a revelation. The Forge Fiend, the centerpiece of my humble Night Lords, has never seen a game. Never. Most of the others have had their moment. A brief casual game in 9th edition, for example. But the Forge Fiend sat on the bench for that game. And it got me thinking, how many of my other miniatures have never seen a game? I mean, how many hours have I poured into painting and assembling them, and for what? To not be used in games? But does that even matter anyway? And while I'm talking about my answers to these questions, allow me to show you the miniatures that I'm talking about. I guess we could start with the Librarian Dreadn. This model exists purely to answer the question, could I? Could I take the spare parts from a Death Company set, from which you can also make the Librarian Dreadn? And could I make the other model? Sure, as long as I have a spare plastic Dreadnought and a few bits from my bits box. So after some chopping and gluing, I made it work, bearing in mind I needed to turn a spare right arm into another left arm. Or maybe it was the other way around, I can't honestly remember. Anyway, here he is, taking his place amongst the other Blood Angels, totally jealous that they have played many games and he hasn't played one, and with the current trend of culling Firstborn, he will likely never see play in contemporary rules. But hey, he sits sentinel on my shelf, saying to me, yes, you could make me from spares and whatnot. Then there's the red gobbo on a Squig, a limited edition model from a couple of Christmases ago. This was actually a present from a colleague for Secret Santa. I felt very blessed. And doesn't he just vomit Christmas cheer and happiness all around? With his lights and his candle and his jolly Squig mount. Thomas was enjoying some relaxation time with the local cows. But he's never seen play. Which one can understand, given his rules were for casual play only. I suppose he could be a proxy, but who cares? He sits on my shelf, excreting Christmas cheer all year round. And that is his raison d'etre. And what is that soaring in the sky? Ah yes, it's a scratch-built burner bomber for my Orc army. Orcs are one of my contemporary forces, as opposed to my old Hammer collections. And one of the best things about Orcs is the potential for conversions and scratch building. Not that GW would allow the latter in their stores or events, but never mind, I get their reasons. That's not going to affect me anyway. So this model exists for two reasons. The first is because I really wanted to use a burner bomber with 8th edition rules where you could begin the game by yeeting it across the board into the enemy's lines. The second reason is to answer the other could I question. Could I scratch build a vehicle? And of course, the answer is yes, with spare parts, MDF, plasticard, and a shampoo bottle. Damn, I had so much fun building this. But the effectiveness of some aircraft is inconsistent in game, and in the past, some rule sets have capped aircraft at 2 per army, so it's never yet had the chance, but I think its time may come. One day, burner bomber. One day. At the end of 2022, I bought a large set of miniatures on a whim. That's right, I bought the Age of Darkness set for Horus Heresy, with the hope of one day playing it, but if I'm honest, I have too little time at the moment. I mainly play casual games with my son or a friend, and I would love to play more, but you know, time. Never enough time. Anyway, I could show you my entire Horus Heresy Ultramarines army, but instead, I'll just show you one model for now, and that's the Land Raider Spartan. I particularly like this one because big armoured vehicles are cool, but also because I actually took the time to paint the insides of this. Well, the inside of the assault ramp specifically. I also had a go at some freehand on the side panel here, which I think came out quite well. So this can go back on the shelf until some arbitrary time when I might need it, when I decide to finally try Horus Heresy and not get intimidated by these massive tomes. Oh heck, let me show you another Horus Heresy miniature. This Leviathan Dreadnought armed with ranged weapons. On this one, I magnetised the arms because I wanted the flexibility to change things up at a later date if future me had such a desire. However, I don't usually magnetise things. Sometimes I magnetise vehicles, but generally, for me, I find it just isn't worth the effort. Being pragmatic, I'm never going to make the time to paint all the other options anyway, but it seemed worth it for the Leviathan Dreadnought, and even if it never gets a different loadout, it does mean I can pose him, and that makes me happy. Very happy indeed. If you ever bought the Dark Vengeance box set for 6th or 7th edition 40k, you will have owned this miniature, Dark Angel's Captain Balthazar. Like the company master from way back in the Rogue Trader days, he's rocking the feathered helm. Maybe one of you can tell me why Dark Angels love their feathers. I'm curious, but just not curious enough to do any actual research on it. So I painted this guy in 2020 when I had more spare time for some bizarre reason. He had been in my pile of shame for years, and my daughter wanted a Space Marine to guard her Sylvanian family's houses, so I painted him for her. He never had a game though, and probably never will, especially with the demise of Firstborn, and more importantly, since he is the only Dark Angels miniature I currently own, until I get you, Azrael. Azrael. But it's fine. He's got an important role in my kid's room, and isn't that enough? In my adult life, I have enjoyed more disposable income than teenage me ever had access to. Mix this with a love for little plastic men, and the result is an extensive collection, but with a lack of a regular gaming group, and a lack of available evenings and weekends. Playing games is something of a luxury. But I've always loved the painting side of the hobby, arguably more than any other aspect of it. And while they may not get a war without end, my models at least get to look half decent on a shelf in my house. At least they get more airtime with these videos. And who knows, maybe I will find more minis in my archives. Minis I can make more videos about in the future. And maybe I'll find that Thomas the Tank Engine I lost. But what models do you have that never get played with? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like what I do, please consider following me on Instagram as well. And with that, I had better paint some more. Beautiful day on the island of Sodor. Thomas was enjoying some relaxation time with the local cows when he remembered it wasn't his day off after all. In fact, the Fat Controller had given him a very special to take to Knapford. But if it wasn't delivered by noon, he would be surely confined to the car shed for the next week. There was no time at all. I'll have to take the Forbidden Tunnel to make it on time, Thomas thought. So as fast as his wheels could chug, Thomas made for the Forbidden Tunnel with the cargo in tow. The tunnel was dark and misty. Thomas wondered when the last time a train had used it, but he pressed on nevertheless. He really had no choice. As the darkness enveloped him, he felt a strange energy surround his sides, and whispers of evil thoughts no respectable train should ever entertain. Terrified by this twisted place, Thomas drove at full speed towards the light at the end of the tunnel. But as he emerged, he realized he was no longer on Sodor after all. Stretched ahead of him was a hellish landscape, a haunt of demons and foul creatures of the warp. Gripped with terror, Thomas reversed towards the tunnel before he was overtaken by his madness, thinking, even the shed can't be as bad as this place. But it was too late. The tunnel and the tracks had both disappeared. Thomas was now at the mercy of the ruinous powers of chaos.